Hello everyone, welcome to my video lecture. Today I'm going to share my lecture focused on the topic, as you can see it's already on the slide shows, Aaron Copland and his piano work, Piano Variations, composed in 1930. And here I also give a subtitle says Under European Culture Influences American Sound. So basically, I think piano variation is a great example to demonstrate Copland's learning in Paris and his own personal ambition, which is build an American sound into his composition. So apart from that, I will also talk about his learning background in Paris in this video lecture and where he met one of his most important instructor, Nadia Blanchet, and also analyze what factors contribute to piano variation this piece through different aspects. All right, let's move on to the next page. So here, as you can see on the left side is I cut a piano variations theme, which is the first four couple measures. And on the right side is Aaron Copland. You already know. Right. I'm going to play the first four measures to everyone now because I personally is very attractive to me. And here it already shows the theme of this piece and also demonstrate the rows, not 12 but 7. Very interesting. Let's hear that. For me, I can already sense some things gonna be happen through this just simple notes moving, and there is the horizontal lines, the melody moving synced by the single notes, and the last chord is strongly dissonance, demonstrate he's trying to transform his composition from the old to the new. All right. Now let's just stay here because I'm also going to give a brief introduction of Aaron Copland, born in 1900 and to 1990. Being as a pioneering American composer, he devoted himself to create American sound in 20th century. Born in Brooklyn, New York, to a family of Nigerian Jewish immigrants, Copland developed an early interest in music and began formal studies in his teenager period. In 1921, Copland traveled to Paris to study at Fontainebleau School of Music, which now is also called School of Fine Arts at Fontainebleau. The school was founded in 1923 and adopted the same mission as the Music Conservatory in the spheres of painting, architecture, and sculpture. There, he became a student of renowned pedagogue Nadia Blanchet, who profoundly shaped his compositional voice. And also, Blanchet encouraged him to explore a broad range of musical styles while maintaining clarity and individuality. This period deeply shaping Copland's later works in modernism techniques, driving to different aesthetics such as neoclassicism and serialism. Today's video lecture gonna strongly focus on following points. Number 1, the war influence. Number 2, Paris, especially experience in Blanchet's studio. Here, I personally think he profoundly developed his compositional techniques in that period. And number 3, meeting with Les Six, French writer André Gide, is also very important because these people are strongly full of the avant-garde feelings, which strongly influence his a lot, no matter from the musically or the visually or some from the theater things. All right, number 4 is 12-tone method and serialism apply and other factors. I really love this point because we always talk about 12-tone method, but here we can see how a composer is starting to use the method by his own way and then transform to the end. And number 5 is gonna be a conclusion. All right. Next slide. Here I prepare some pictures for. On the left side, you can see is the School of Music, Fine Arts at Fontainebleau back then, 1921. And on the right side, on the right up corner is Copland and Nandia Blanchet, and on the right bottom, you can see is Blanchet with Stravinsky, because I'm also gonna introduce the friendship between Blanchet and Stravinsky. That also gonna be a big significant factors that also applied in Blanchet's teaching method. All right, let's go to, well, the war influence. As we the period 1914 to 1918, World War One, was called crazy years in France. Especially we're talking about Paris today. As you can see here, at some point, I conclude by myself the economic hardship, family loss, avant-garde, new aesthetics. Let's go for more details for it. So by the end of the 1917, after First World War, people experienced extremely trauma, as you can imagine, especially the Belgian countries. The life in Paris after the war was a mix of economic hardship. As you can see, the saying I put here, the picture, everything was destroyed and looks like a mess, and you can easily imagine how the economics situation back then. So which just became a city of paradox, like, and also the family loss. I don't need to talk too much about that, but you can also imagine how people experienced hard time back then, which is extremely bloody life. Of course, the following the artist flourishing, known as crazy years. No matter in physically or mentally, the war left Paris a time to being crazy. The trauma of the war ignited a hunger to break from tradition. That's a key point. And the city full of highly avant-garde atmosphere, leading by Picasso, Salvador Dali, who rejected romantic and impressionism aesthetics. And then the new aesthetics came out, such as Dadaism, Cubism, Surrealism. Especially in musically speaking, Paris saw the rise of modernism development. So composers like Stravinsky, like I introduced before, who had settled in Paris after leaving Russia, his works like The Rite of Spring, which premiered just before the war, mixed the boundaries between the music, the sound, and the dance, the visually. No matter from the thing that the audience can see or the sound the audience can hear, demonstrating a huge difference to the audience. Similarly, the composers such as Satie, we also talked about before, explore the minimalism and think nothing is important and you don't need to care about the music sound. Taking music away from the old traditional ways. So the spirit of Paris that make it really became a magnet for experienced writers, artists, and intellectual people from all around the world. Very attractive, I believe. However, let's see. The next slide shows. During the same period, American experienced different situation than France. The 1920s, known as the Roaring Twenties, brought economic growth actually to the United States. The war had boosted industrial production. Here I get the point. And the society changed a lot based on the cultural transformation. So everything is combined to each other, as you can see. If the economic goes to very good level, and people's situation gonna be following with it, so the drives people more ideas to getting something new, to create something new during that period. With the war over, there was heightened interest in education and the arts, so that the American artists, inspired by the culture which is outside from America, driving them explore more to expand their horizons. So the Europe, especially Paris, was considered as the top place of the modern art and the music for young composers. So like Copland, these guys, where it could provide them fresh ideas to think about what is the music and what is the new sound should be like. So they need to travel and experience, like living in the place, to absorb something new, to make the music sounds different. So this is the first factor, war influence. And next page about that. So with this speaking, Copland started his Paris study, and was encouraged by his piano teacher Ruben Goldmark. So when Copland arrived in Paris in 1921, he actually had some compositions works, such as the three moods on the screen. I'm going to play a little bit for you because I personally really like it. And also the very famous The Cat and the Mouse, 1920. We'll also listen a little part of it later. These works are actually full of jazzy feeling. This is one of very important factors in Copland's early period of composition style. And polyrhythm, of course, applied in every the pieces in his early stage. And Copland actually enrolled at the newly established American Conservatory and Fontainebleau here. I already showed. So these schools are actually built especially for the American people who wants to learn music in Paris. And so actually Copland is not the first American student that Blanchet accept. But anyway, Copland was the one of the favorite Blanchet students, because there is the interview I saw after says Blanchet was a little tired of taking the interview, but once the interviewer mentioned Copland, Blanchet was right away full of energy and talk about Copland is very great, and back then they experienced blah 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 a lot. So I believe that. All right, let's back to the lecture. Is in here, Copland initially studied at the beginning in the Paris. He initially studied harmony and composition with Paul Vidal, but the way of teaching method was strongly academic school way. So this leads Copland being recommended to Nadia Blanchet, who had actually had more open-minded and more modern approach to teach composition. So after listening Copland's playing three moods, Blanchet accepted accepted he as a student and started to build his composition with big transformation change. I like three moves very much personally. I think the three short pieces, it's only around 4 or 5 minutes, demonstrate very interesting, just like the title of the moods, three different type moods, and with the small title, which is shows a little old school ways, the programmatic feeling. And all right, let's listen first a little bit, and I'm talking more about this. We can already feeling there is a little conflict with by applying the strong big chords with a little bit dissonance feeling, but in all it sounds constant, right? And very melodic ways. With even though he's trying to apply some small intervals with the accidental notes, and of course, the before we can also hear the strong rhythmic feeling, right? The second movement, wistful, very peaceful, moderately slow. And then clearly hearing the line from the top. Again, the big chords, but clearly line. The third one, my personally favorite, the jazzy, just like the title. So let's keep the feeling in, because there is a little small connection from the early period into piano variation, and in Copland's later works, there's a little connection. All right, let's move on. So now I'm going to talk about one of Copland's most important mentor, Nadia Boulanger, born in 1887 to 1979. She was known as a composer, conductor, and music educator. Before the war, she had developed her career as composer and performer, supporting herself and her family through teaching, many in private lessons and at the Conservatory of Femina Musica. In her 30s, she shifted the focus to teaching. As a teacher, she provided her students great opportunities to engage with a wide range of musical works. Especially speaking with Copland, Boulanger strongly support his ideas that incorporate jazz and other American influences into his composition. That's why I play a little bit the three moods to you guys. You can definitely sense the taste of the three moods that jazzy feeling and something different than the music in Europe, right? So Blanche felt that American music had the potential to grow on its own terms, given that, in her opinion, the national cultural makeup contained two key elements of the modern music. One is a sense of rhythm, and another one is the cultivation of individuality. So, which contrasts different from the musicians such as Dvorak, Milhaud, and Ravel, the before composers. Besides, she saw jazz as important key factors. Her view, and in, so in that case, sorry about that. Blanche emphasized the individuality and as the powerful national trait, and offering her American students positive counter-image to prejudice the intercount elsewhere in Paris. Okay, let's move on. So in her studio, I list a point says friendship with Stravinsky, with his some works. Blanche was very close friend of Stravinsky. Blanche also championed Stravinsky as the heart of the musical modernism. So in that case, she frequently used Stravinsky's works such as The Rite of Spring, Petrushka, Pachanina in her studio for teaching. And because Stravinsky was deeply confirmed as the neoclassical pioneer composer, we definitely can sense the work learned by Copland, that the piano variation also give us a sense of neoclassical works. All right, and another point here I said the strongly focused on the counterpoint is because I read a bibliography says that in Blanche's studio they spent 24 times on the J.S. Bach's The Well-Tempered Clavier, Book 2. You already know why 24 times, because we have 24 keys, right? And the key thing is they spent 24 times on each piece, but 24 times differently. This, we all know that counterpoint is very much used a lot in the Bach's Prelude and Fugue everywhere. So what I want to emphasize is here that Nadia Blanche still focused strongly on the tradition techniques, but also explore something new combined with her teaching. So that leads Copland to composed so much music comes after that. This is her teaching specials from it, and the national trait I mentioned a little bit about it. So I want to speak more about the piano vision. How I mentioned earlier before says it's the neoclassical work. As you can know, the piano version, the variation form, it's a traditional form. It's a classical structure often used by Beethoven, Brahms, these composers. And also, the elements of counterpoint is also shows up everywhere in that piece. This is the traditional techniques, but the harmonic is highly experimental, applying much more dissonance compared to three moods before he moves to Paris for learning. So the harmonic, the dissonance, the non-traditional progression with simplistic theme. The only 7 notes. Do you remember the beginning of the piano variation? Simple. So the syncopated rhythms is not usual before. So I think piano variation could be a great example to prove as the neoclassicism work. All right. Number 3, we are moving to the focused on meeting with other artists. Three guys here I list: Andre Gide, the symbolist writer; Les Six, strongly anti-Wagnerian; Aaron Copland, a theater producer who gives Copland strongly expressions. And on the right side here, I put the Andre Gide picture. The next page. All right, on the left side is Les Six, and on the right top, we are very familiar, the Satie, and on the right bottom is Aaron Copland. Let's give more details about these people. So, in addition to Boulanger, Aaron Copland's artistic development was influenced by several musicians and writers. One notable influence was the French writer Andre Gide. He is the winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1947. Gide's career ranged from its beginning in the symbolist movement to the advent anti-colonialism between the two world wars. His things in the New York Times described the author of more than 50 books as France's greatest contemporary man of the letters. Gide's works can be seen as the investigation of freedom and empowerment in the face of moralistics and constraints, and it centers on his continuous effort to achieve intellectual honesty. So, based on the information I introduced, his strong connection to the symbolist literature, I think the symbolist gonna emphasize on individual expression and rejection of convention. These are very important ideas. Strongly influenced Copland's desire to break away from traditional compositional forms. So they can be shown on piano variation. I think Copland explicitly referenced Gide's influence in seeking for more clarity, like a beginning, precision, only use 7 tones instead of 12 tones because he's trying to experience something. That's it. That's from the writers. And apart from that, the middle is Les Six, also is a big influence. A group of young French composers on the left side who all took Eric Satie as their teacher and rejected the idea of Impressionism and Wagnerian music. Also fresh his Copland's mind to compose. And especially the Milhaud in the group of Les Six left a significant impression to Copland with his incorporation of jazz and Brazilian rhythms into classical forms. So drives Copland later works, actually not the piano variation, but music for theater and piano concerto, something like this. And additionally, the last man, close connected to his friend Aaron Copland, an American theater director. Copland's work in the American theater scene, particularly his involvement in the group theater, helped Copland to understand the intersection between music and dramatic expression. So not just the sound, but also the visually influenced Copland very much. Provided his idea that composition could be making something new with break old rules and creating new aesthetics in new 20th century period. So all the people I introduced at the beginning, for now, they are all stands for one thing: is break the old things and create something new with their own national traits. That's the thing. And also keep the simplistics, right? All right. Finally, we moves on the piano variation. This piece, born in 1930s, And on the right side, I put the theme again because this beginning very interesting, shows already the key point I want to talk about today is the 7-tone rows, the E, C sharp, D, B, C, B flat, E flat, instead of 12-tone, right? And the point also conclude with the serialism. I put the serialism because I think 12-tone is actually kind of one of the methods from serialism. So this is very much makes sense, even though didn't strongly serialism, but I want to put it here. And the jazz influence also, and American sound. We can talk about it later. Again, piano variation, I think is considered as very great works by Copland to express everything that he experienced when he was in Paris, the learning experience. This piece with with the notes, 7 notes as the theme, 20 variations with a coda. The method he's using here I already typed. And let's talk about these things one-on-one. I want to talk about a little bit for the jazz rhythm influence a little bit, because based on in his early career, he showed a strong intention by using rhythmically musical language into his works, such as The Cat and Mouse I mentioned early, the 1920. So same, I think, in the piano variation is the frequent meter change, the energy moving along with structure change. Just give a little sense of the vibrant rhythm and syncopated style. Still shows a little bit his intention of jazz building. So let's listen the Cat of the Mouse for a little bit. And then let's move to a little bit I think the jazz rhythm filling in piano variation. Okay. Especially here, bum, 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 bum. The running fast notes bird is very not borrowed, but just his own styles. Like he used the cat and mouse is using the no matter glazando or these running fast notes gives us a rhythm feeling very strongly, right? And keep listening. With the single notes. And with the disappear, with the single notes disappear, that's I also think is very attractive to listeners to focus on what's going to happening to the next. All right. And I also want to keep talking about talk about the consideration of using serialism, whether or not. Actually, many people hold different versions. I agree, as there is a little mention that piano variation has connection with Schoenberg's serialism, especially Schoenberg, right? Plus, the first major analysis of piano variation came from Arthur Berger in 1934 in the article for Musical Makery. He talked about that pointillism in this piece. I also gonna sense a little pointillism using, but I didn't talk about too much of it, because I consider it still influenced by serialism very much. In this piece, point out how its angular lines come from moving notes of the motive into different registers, the big register exploring from top to the bottom. Berger even compared this pointillism to Schoenberger's music, but without bringing up serialism at all. But this is his idea. But I also read a conversation bibliography from Com to Copland. Actually, Copland himself mentioned that his interest in serialism actually starts from piano variation. I think this is very important. But I think in this piano variation, Copland's interest seems to lie more with the total pitch content, with the matrix of the row forms, rather than with the note to note, like create the big matrix and the different serials. So rather than using the completely 12 tones, he's using 7 tones. This is very cool, I think. Definitely using in his own way. And actually, so with this speaking, he did not write a strictly 12-tone music until 1940s. But he did experiment with this method in his own versions, in other works, not just piano variation, but such as the Poet's Song, the Pastoral, and of course this one. So very much cool. Just like the beginning of using the 12-tone method, right? Combined with the jazz feeling. All right, I'm going to give a conclusion for today's video lecture. The 4 points: as pivot movement, the nationalism guide by Nadia Boulanger, very important, European experience with other people meeting, and his identity contribute. And the last one, the legacy of piano variation, is that's a thing. So first of all, I think Copland's piano variation in his early period was a pivotal movement in his composition career, blending a variety of modernist techniques such as dissonance, polyrhythmics, 7-tone metrics were using. But at the same time, he also keeps the old forms like variation, the counterpoint techniques everywhere shows up. This work not only demonstrates Copland's techniques that he absorbed in Europe, but also reflected his evolving American identity. Under Boulanger's teaching, his music presents highly experimental elements, not just like the beginning, the 3 moves, the cat and mouse, still listening constant and full of jazz rhythmic. But starting from learning with Boulanger, his ambition to create an American sound was deeply profound, and also informed by his experience in Paris culture. So, since Paris in the 1920s was a hub of the innovation, where the art and music were breaking free from romantic traditions, and composers were experimenting new aesthetics. At the same time, French perceptions of American culture were often reductive, viewing the United States was a land of industrial mass production and cultural commodification. These stereotypes may have heightened Copland's determination to craft a musical identity and transcend such the superficial definitions, giving American music a place to dignity and innovation to global stage. Definitely without the strong encouraged by Boulanger, her teaching ideas, and also the other people he met, always encouraging him to search in his own ideas and just blending them and create something new, not like the old ones. So the work like piano variation, I think Copland actually built a bridge between the European modernism and American idiom, like connect them together. um, and later, a lot of his masterpieces like Apachem Spring, 1944, is another way to, like, he is going across the bridge to another new way to do his own music. But still, again, it was shaped by European modernist practices and committed to finding a voice that truly American. So yeah, that's all my video lecture, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you.